السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا مزيدا دائما إلى يوم يبعثون وبعد. My dear respected brothers and sisters in Islam, we continue with our short series dedicated to the life of our beloved Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and his family. In the last lecture, we looked at the virtues of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam in the Quran. Today we will be focusing on some of the lessons that we learn from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, which was dedicated to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know regarding Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam that he was born at a time where there were no believers on earth. There were no Muslims. And the people in the town of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, they were all worshipping idols. And Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, at the age of 13, a young 13-year-old child, a child who's becoming a teenager, at 13 or 14, Allah knows best, he knows that what these people are worshipping cannot be God. It's not logical that they call upon these gods made from stone and wood, asking them for help, yet these gods cannot help themselves. These gods cannot defend themselves. And he knew that there was a greater God, and that is a God that they were meant to be worshipping. How can you possibly make gods, design them with your own hands, and then buy and sell them? So Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he goes on a da'wah mission, and he advises and he admonishes the people with the most gentle of manners. But where does his da'wah start? Here's the lesson for us. Where does the da'wah start? Where does the education start? It starts in his own home. That's the first place to start the da'wah. That's the first place to start educating people, in your own homes. And so Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, he goes to his father and he explains to his father that these gods, these idols that you are worshipping, they cannot be God. We learn a very important lesson from this part of the story of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, and that is that if your children come and they try to educate you, they try to guide you, they try to lead you to the straight path, they try to correct you, then there is no harm in listening to them. It is halal. It is halal for you to listen to your children, especially when they are trying to correct you and educate you. It's okay. Swallow your pride. Don't get angry when your child comes and he says to you, for example, respected father, you are doing this action, but it's not meant to be like this. We're meant to be doing it like this. Or this action that you're doing, this is not from Islam. It's halal. You can listen to your children. Imagine for a moment that if the father of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam had listened to his child, and he had been guided, today his father would have been in Jannah and not Jahannam. And this is as a result of not listening to his young child. But his father did not listen to him. His father did not follow him. Another question I would like to ask. Here is Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, a young 13, 14-year-old, and he's doing da'wah. He's inviting people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My question is, what are our 13, 14-year-olds doing today? Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam single-handedly as a teenager. He's not a prophet yet, remember. He's standing up for the truth. He's going against the norm. So when his father does not listen, then he goes out to the people. And he tries to educate them. He's trying to warn them. He's telling them, stop. Don't worship these gods. Don't worship these idols. Another lesson that we learn is just because a large group of people are doing a certain action, it does not make that action correct. It does not mean that just because a large group of people are doing a certain action, that it's halal and it's okay to do. Ibrahim alayhi salam, he went against the norm. And we find through his da'wah that he never disrespected anyone. Go back to when he was inviting his father. And his father literally threatened his son. He said that if you don't stop preaching this, then I will kill you myself. I will get rid of you myself. I will stone you to death. And what did Ibrahim ﷺ respond? Was his response that I'm going to report you to the authorities? You can't touch me. Who do you think you are? His response was, peace to you, O Father, and I will continue praying for you. So despite the persecution and the death threats, Ibrahim ﷺ, he continued inviting the people. Then the persecution got worse. The people of his town, they started to dig this great pit and to fuel it with fire. For 3 days it is mentioned that Ibrahim ﷺ, he was tied to a post, and before him they're preparing this big fire. In reality, they had no intention. Of throwing Ibrahim ﷺ in the fire. This was to threaten him. A bit like, when one of your younger ones misbehave in the house, and what do you say to them? Behave or I will lock you up in the basement. I'm sure that's quite common, yes? Behave or I will lock you up in the basement. Now that doesn't mean to say that you're going to lock them up in the basement, of course, but you threaten them, you warn them. So here there's this big fire for 3 days. Imagine this for a moment. For 3 days, they are building this great fire. And they're saying to Ibrahim ﷺ, if you do not stop preaching about this God, and if you do not stop talking against our gods, we're going to throw you in this ditch. And what happens? Ibrahim, he continues to give his da'wah. And then they throw Ibrahim ﷺ into this fire. And according to some of the Mufassirun, they mentioned that it is at this stage of Ibrahim ﷺ's life that he became a prophet. Because it was at this stage that Jibreel came down. Bi-idhnillah, and with the permission of Allah, he commanded the fire to become cool. And the fire becomes cool for Ibrahim ﷺ. Ibrahim ﷺ is sitting in that fire and is remembering Allah. Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah will protect me, and Allah is the best of protectors. And suddenly this fire becomes cool for Ibrahim ﷺ, and he is able to walk out safely. One of the lessons we learn, a very important lesson we learn here, is that if we have complete tawakkul, in complete trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Ibrahim ﷺ had in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then Allah is sufficient. Remember, Ibrahim ﷺ did not know that this fire was going to turn cold for him, but he was ready and he was thrown in. Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakeel. This was the dua that he was praying. Allah mentions, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Whoever has complete trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is sufficient. This is a very important lesson that we learn. That even if the entire human race go against us, if the entire world goes against us, for as long as we have Allah, then we will always be safe. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, then he leaves. He is forced to leave. And another lesson that we learn is that the importance of freedom to practice our religion. And he leaves, he migrates. He's immigrating for the sake of his religion. And he was the first person to do so, to leave in order to be able to practice his religion, and in order to be free from the persecution that was coming his way, and that continued throughout his young life from his people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us understanding. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in the coming days, the blessed days of the Hijjah. We'll finish off on this note. We'll continue with our next program, inshallah. Lesson number 3, and we'll continue looking at the lessons from the life of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه الغفور الرحيم. فجزاكم الله خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.